I always like starting videos off with a question, so let me ask you this. What does an isekai need in order to be interesting, enjoyable, and maybe even widely considered a good anime? Decent world building and engaging story make for a good start, but specifically within the space of shows that make use of other worlds as a plot device, most of them sadly fail to deliver on exactly this. With modern anime, of which way too many fall into the quick and dirty low effort reincarnation category, I'm always wondering, why even turn your idea into an isekai when that theme, aside from sending one or more characters into another world, only exists for it to be never mentioned again afterwards? Yeah, it's a quick way to introduce the escapist and self-insert character to the audience, and maybe put one or two real-world gimmicks on top of it. But honestly, you could take that away from most isekai plots and they would, at their core, still be able to play out the exact same way. Which leaves us, more often than not, with shows that might have isekai as one of their tags, but end up being just a mid-fantasy time waster you forget about a few weeks later. Which is kinda sad actually, because there's so much more it can be utilized for, as some few exceptions show us from time to time. Shows that can't exist without the isekai, because it plays such a significant part in their plot progression and world building that everything around it would start crumbling down if it got taken away. And that is what in my opinion separates the bad anime using this theme from the good ones, because those bad ones are barely even isekai to begin with. You might be asking yourself, why is this guy even yapping about all that stuff? Don't worry, it'll make sense in a moment. When I started researching what the first isekai anime was, I found the one that was gonna end up the topic of this video. But when I dug deeper, I found out that it technically, although being widely considered the first one, in fact wasn't the first. More like the third. But it was the first when we are talking about heavily integrating the isekai theme into not only the world building, but the whole story, making it an indispensable part of your journey. An anime that I would call the first true isekai, Aura Battler Dunbine. Fortunate are those who remember the tales of Byston well, because although everyone born in our world is imprinted with these memories, by some cruel twist of fate, only a select few have the ability to recall these tales of wonder and mystery. Accompanied by those ominous words, we follow along as Sho-sama suddenly gets transported into a world very different from his own. Hoarsely summoned by some mystical creature known as a Silky, who possesses the power of opening up the Aura Road, a connector between Byston Well and Upper Earth, Sho finds himself inside the walls of what looks like your standard depiction of a medieval European fortress. Confused and not in the mood of cooperating with these weirdly dressed strangers, he tries fighting his way out, which does not exactly work out in his favor. As it turns out, Sho was not the only person summoned to this world, and they all will soon find out the reason of why they got summoned here to begin with. To pilot crazy insectoid robot war machines, baby. Developed by genius engineer Shot Weapon, what a badass name by the way, who's this guy we've seen in the beginning, these, attention title drop, so-called Aura Battlers are in fact used for nothing more than waging war. I will go more into detail about them later. After his own summoning to Byston Well, Shot Weapon swore allegiance to Lord Drake Luft, the suspiciously antagonistic looking bald guy right here. His goal, uniting all nations of Byston Well under the banner of House Drake, by force, naturally. Not that much later on, after being attacked by House Given, which is very aware of Drake's schemes, failed negotiations, and the start of a bigger conflict, Sho realizes that he might be fighting for the wrong side in this battle. That, as well as some chance encounters with Marvel Frozen, an ally of House Given, leads Sho to join them in their attempt of stopping Drake's power-hungry ambitions for good. This, and probably because he finds her hot. From this point onwards, we mainly follow our main crew on board the Solana, an Aura ship led by Neil Given, the head of the resistance group. And with this first big chunk of exposition done, let's take a look at some of the other important characters. I will keep this mostly spoiler free, so don't worry. First off, the Solana crew. I already talked a little about the main protagonist, Sho, and to be completely honest, I did not like this guy at all in the beginning, but he gets progressively better and more likable over time. He's the basic main character when it comes to initial inexperience and moments of impulsiveness. You need room for a character to grow, and Sho got plenty of that. You just need to be a little patient with them. And when talking about Sho, we also have to include Jump, a tiny fairy-like creature which in Byston Well are called Mi Ferrario. She is annoying, pushy, stupid, lazy, and causes more problems to the crew on top of what's already happening. And she's great, somewhat of a comedy relief character, but with enough relevance to make you care about her. Then we have Marvel Frozen, who just like Sho got summoned from Upper Earth and started joining Nigiven in his resistance against House Drake. There's not much to her background other than she's from the United States, specifically Texas. But she's definitely the most level-headed of the crew, plays a big part in Sho joining them, and is arguably the #1 contributor to his personal growth. Keen Kiss is the youngest member on board and in many aspects similar to Sho. Her impulsiveness and constant need to prove herself useful in battle causes some problems every now and then, but it also makes her an, although sometimes annoying, overall interesting side character. In battle, she primarily acts as a support fighter, piloting the foe. Again, we'll get there. Last but not least, Neil Given, commander of the Solana and winner of 1983's Stupidest Hairstyle Award. Being wary of Sho early on and overall rather harsh, Neil seems a little unlikable at first, but given what he's been through, his character makes a lot of sense. And same as the other ones so far, he too has a good amount of growth coming for him. As for the main antagonists and rivals, other than the big bad Drake Luft, there are quite a few, all falling in the same category of battle-crazed ideologists. And as far as compelling characters go, they are not taking top spot. It's not like they're boring or anything, but they lack some serious variation. But the anime makes you care about them anyway, one way or the other, because there's almost no episode without one of them showing up trying to murder everyone. But back to the Solana crew, they might not be a perfect match of people, and there often is some friction between them, but that also makes the characters feel more real in a sense. And when shit's going down, you can be sure they'll fight together, no matter what. And fighting is what this show does best, and most. As you probably already feel from the clips on screen, there is, although the robot designs greatly differ, a big Gundam vibe that Dunbine gives off. And that's no coincidence, because this series' creator and director is none other than the Gundam man himself, Yoshiyuki Tomino. Produced by Studio Sunrise, Aura Battler Dunbine was set to be an adaptation of Tomino's own novel, The Wings of Reen, which actually didn't include any kind of mechs at all. But as you can see, that initial plan didn't persist, thanks to production sponsors Clover and Bandai insisting on having them included. Dunbine started airing all the way back in 1983, roughly 4 years after the creation of the Gundam franchise, which, putting initial struggles aside, managed setting the groundwork for the real robot subgenre, in which Dunbine falls as well. And while not being as successful as the Gundam series, Dunbine, since it released, never stopped receiving love all around, including, of course, model kits, own video game releases, multiple appearances in the Super Robot Wars series, as well as some more recent experimental animations by Studio Sunrise, which might be hinting at a possible reboot in the future. And a welcomed one at that, considering the anime, although having received a dubbed DVD version for North America back in 2003, as well as an HD remaster 15 years later, still isn't easy to get your hands on outside the US. So let's just wait and see, I guess. By the way, if Dunbine's show plays Bison well, triggered something within you, yes, this anime has a distinct, not all that important connection to the infamous It's So Bad That It's Actually Good show, Garze's Wing. Same Bison well, but a few centuries later. Now let's talk a bit about probably the most important part of the series, the Aura Battlers. An optical mix of half insect, half human, these robots not only look dope, but are nicely integrated into Dunbine's worldbuilding too. The outer parts are made from carapaces and shells of the monsters that reside in Bison Well, and with a bunch of designs and different specs, they are the focal point of most battles happening in the anime, which are a lot. In the center, of course, the name-giving Dunbine itself. But aside from the mechs, you also have Wings Caliber, that act as kind of a support unit for the Aura Battlers. Aura ships, long-distance battleships like the Solana, used for getting around and storing the main weaponry, Aura Bombers, mainly for targeting structures on ground, and Aura Battleships, gigantic flying fortresses acting as mobile military bases, which show up way later in the story. If you're interested in the individual specs of each, I'll leave you a link down in the description. As much as I enjoyed how all these different types of mechs and battleships got woven into Dunbine's plot, it has not always been easy to follow. You're getting hit with a lot of different unit names and maneuvers and are expected to just get it. I watched all 49 episodes and still don't know what the benefit of docking an Aura Battler to a Wing's caliber is. And the same thing does happen at other parts as well. For example, the different regions of Well that have always been around but never get mentioned before the characters are actually going there. Not to forget the power system, which is aura power. You hear it flying around a number of times, and it's for this power Drake Luft summons people from Upper Earth, because some of them apparently got more of it. But how it works exactly and how all the different vessels react to it doesn't really get specified, and it's up to your own gist figuring that out. The show definitely throws a lot at you in the beginning, but once you get adjusted to how it's directed, there's a weird charm to it that makes you want to continue watching. At its core, Aura Battler Dunbine is a story about the senselessness of war, about the different motivations of participating, and how it affects the people that are directly involved. This primary plot point gets presented pretty well, and although the world building has some inconsistencies, it's interesting. There is tension, there are stakes, and there is thought put behind the isekai aspect, of which I will not go much deeper into because of heavy spoilers. Let's just say they move around, and shit's getting hype. If I had to criticize one thing in particular though, it's the pacing. There is a point where it starts dragging, and Dunbine turns into one of those anime where you feel it could have wrapped up in way less episodes it ended up having. But luckily the climax at the end makes this relatively small struggle all worth it. All in all, with its, in my opinion, better than average approach of an isekai story, combined with 80s science fantasy retro vibes, badass mechs, a great soundtrack, to this day's stunning art style, and a more than decent animation for a multiple decades old show, Dunbine holds up pretty well in my books. It not only directly influenced other isekai as well as mecha classics like The Visions of Escaflowne, and had without a doubt a major inspiring impact on those genres in general, but also is a prime example of why going back to check out and appreciating the older stuff is more often than not completely worth your time. I'd personally rate Aura Battler Dunbine around a 7 out of 10 based on just the anime alone. But the feeling of exploring the past to get to know more about the origins of the medium that I love bumps it up my recommendation list quite a lot. And if this video piqued your interest so much that you wanna check it out yourself, let me know your thoughts afterwards. And if not, well, then you roughly know what it's about now anyway. And with that, thank you so much for watching. Have you already watched Aura Battler Dunbine or got another retro series you think everyone interested in the history of anime should watch? Then put it down in the comments. Also, if you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of my stuff in the future. As always, I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Until then, peace.